Welcome to Fire Service Legal Minute, presented by John Murphy, retired Deputy Fire Chief and Attorney at Law, on behalf of Fire Engineering and Penwell Corporation. Today we're going to talk a little bit more about what gets fire departments in trouble in a little bit more detail. And we talked about last time was that mostly it's employer issues that get those organizations into trouble. So here's a few of them, and it's almost like word salad. And so we have the Age Discrimination and Employment Act under the term ADEA. And what that means is anybody over the age of 40 and they're terminated for other than just reasons, or they're an at-will employee, then there may be a lawsuit based on age. The next one is sexual discrimination and harassment issues, which is it seems to be rampant in our industry, unfortunately. And it may not be as rampant as we think it is, but we also see a lot of news media and we see a lot of case law out there where sexual harassment, discrimination issues, especially against women and firefighters of color, have resulted in huge judgments against fire departments in the millions of dollars. And those are easily preventable with a few educational practices and a couple of good policies. May help your organization avoid those sorts of things. Another one that we're seeing is Pregnancy Discrimination Act. And we've seen a case where the federal government, the Department of Justice came in to the fire department down in Davie, Florida, where the female firefighters who were pregnant filed a discrimination claim based on the allegation that light duty afforded to male firefighters wasn't afforded to women firefighters. So they filed a federal complaint, and the feds came in, the Department of Justice came in, did an investigation, and says, yes, you're correct. You're not administering your light duty policies equitably to all employees, regardless of gender. And there was a consent decree, which is a whole other topic. We don't want to get into consent decrees. But what a consent decree does is provide federal judicial oversight and a federal monitor coming in and managing essentially your organizations. And so under pregnancy discrimination, you just want to be very careful that you don't discriminate against your female firefighters. Next one is USERA, which is the Military Leave Act, which allows for your veterans who are coming back from deployment. A lot of your departments have reserve military people in there, and they get deployed. And especially in the recent wars that we've had in Afghanistan and Iraq and other hotspots across the country, our firefighters are getting deployed multiple times. So they may be in and out of your organization or may be gone for a long period of time. And under USERA, there are specific codes and standards that departments need to follow in allowing your deployed firefighters who are returning to work. And so there's a number of cases out there where employers, both in the fire side and on the non-fire side, other public and private employers, are violating veterans' rights on their right to return to work. So those are easy to follow, establish policies for those returning veterans as well. The Family Medical Leave Act, which appears that nobody really understands how it works, but it's time off afforded to your employees for lots of different reasons. Have a birth of a child, taking care of a sick parent, a sick spouse, a sick child. If you have a returning veteran who's been injured in the war, there's additional time that's afforded for you to take time off. Now, these are generally leave without pay, and many employers will allow you to use your vacation time or any of your earned benefits, including sick time at times, so you get a full paycheck. But after a period of time, under Family Medical Leave Act, you kind of lose those pay benefits and you're kind of off duty without pay. So if you're going to apply an FMLA or apply for FMLA in your organization, you need to understand what the long-term outcome and ramifications of applying for that type of leave is. The Fair Labor Standards Act is, pay for hours worked. Many of you who are in labor groups, those issues are pretty much taken care of. You volunteers out there, a lot of times volunteers are uncompensated for your service to your organization. Other organizations make modest contributions, either in some sort of a point system or some other return for your investment in the fire department at the end of the year. So you get a small stipend or those sorts of things. So you have to understand there's been some court cases where volunteers or part-time employees are counted as full-time employees when an organization is taking a look at, or there's been a claim against your organization for violation under the Fair Labor Standards Act. So be very careful about how you characterize your volunteer firefighters, and also how you pay your full-time employees on a more than a 40-hour work week, or if you have a labor agreement that makes certain allocations for the 56-hour work week. And now we're finding organizations that are doing the 4896, which obviously has some issues dealing with modification of your labor contract. So make sure that your firefighters are well paid and paid for the work that they do. One of the big things we're starting to see now is HIPAA violations. And HIPAA is a Health Insurance Portability Act that allowed employees to move from one job to the other without worrying about their health insurance. And so what we're finding is that there's a very small component of that HIPAA that deals with privacy of medical records. And we have general obligation to protect our records anyway, our personnel records, preventing disclosure of phone numbers, social security numbers, addresses, marital status and stuff like that. But what we have found under HIPAA, the HIPAA law, is that there's more protections for patient medical records than we've ever had in the past. Now, I think on this one, the pendulum has swung a little bit too far, is that we can't talk to anybody about anything, and I think that's probably okay. And most organizations who bill for services are, strongly advised to follow HIPAA. Other organizations that don't bill for service, I would invoke a HIPAA type policy that protects the release of medical records. We're seeing that the feds have finally figured out how to charge or file a claim against organizations who illegally release medical records or medical information to the general public. And we're not looking so much at fire departments and smaller organizations. They're looking at large organizations like pharmacies and hospitals who have a tendency to dump medical records and prescriptions in the dumpster and not shred them. And so there's major fines that have been given to those large medical institutions for HIPAA violations. But now that the feds are trying to cutting their teeth on the big organizations, they're going to be looking to smaller organizations, especially if you're carrying patient information on a laptop or on your cell phone and you lose it, or somebody hacks into your computer system at work and releases that sort of information. There could be some jeopardy there, not only from the federal government, but possibly from the patient as well. And then we talked last time about retaliation and wrongful termination. So what gets your firefighters into trouble? We'll just kind of rip through these here pretty fast, but creating a hostile environment, not only as a supervisor, but as a firefighter as well. Using the internet inappropriately, visiting porn sites, sending out racist emails, harassing or stalking somebody, which is called cyber stalking. We have a tendency to use our emails to send around racy jokes and nude pictures of women, mostly, sometimes men. I haven't seen those personally, but I'm sure that it happens. And there's been a lot of terminations that have occurred through misuse of the department's internet. Also, off-duty behavior. We're seeing a number of firefighters who have been arrested for drunk driving, who are selling drugs off-duty, conducting themselves in a manner that doesn't quite fit the model or the stereotype that we like to see as firefighters. And so they get a lot of problems at home. We're seeing some domestic violence issues going on. And then, like I said earlier, off-duty drug and alcohol use. So I think the issue that we're trying to portray here on the legal issue is you have an obligation to your organization not to create unnecessary harm or any harm. You have an obligation to yourself and your family not to get into little liabilities or legal jeopardy by conducting yourselves poorly while you're off duty. And I think that on behalf of fire engineering, for this time, this is the end of the Fire Service Legal Minute. And this is John Murphy signing off. And thank you very much.